So this is the last lecture on lipids, and I just want to give you an overview of the other type of lipids that are classified under this class. And we're going to look at the membranes first, which are phospholipids and cholesterol. And then we're going to look at some compounds that are structurally similar to cholesterol. And then we'll end with vitamins. And take a look at some of the fat soluble vitamins. All right, so phospholipids, which is a big portion of the lipid bilayer in your cell membrane, it consists of about 80% of the cell membrane, and the other 20% are proteins. I mean, if you take a look at typically a drawing of cell membrane, this is from a biochemistry book. This is what you typically see. This is a lipid bilayer. These are the proteins. These little yellow things are cholesterol. And then things that are coming off on a protein are the carbohydrate markers. So this will be an outside of cell, and this would be the inside of cell. So you've seen many pictures like this. So all these things with the green head and two tails coming off, those are the phospholipids that make up the lipid bilayer. Right? So phospholipids structurally look exactly, or not exactly, but very similar to soap molecules. They contain two long hydrophobic tails. So soap molecule, you only saw one tail, but this one has two tails, as you see here. And then it has a polar region, as you can see here, that has got the charged compounds. So if you look at the drawing of the structure, these are the two tails, and one of the tail has a double bond. So there's a little kink to the tail. So even though we abbreviate these as like a circle and two long tails like this, really more accurate is long tail that's straight, somewhat straight, and then tail that's bent, because one of them is it's got a cis double bond in them. All right, so it's a glycerol derived. So two of the OHs have the long chains on them, one saturated and one unsaturated. And then on the third one, you have a phosphate group and a choline group, which has the plus and the minus. So this is the equivalent to the carboxylic acid, salt and soap. So what happens is that these phospholipids in aqueous solution spontaneously form lipid bilayer. And so what happens is the polar groups, which is over here, or the head in the drawing, will be facing out, and then the non-polar region, the tails will aggregate pointing inward to avoid the water molecules. So this allows this formation. So here's a drawing of it. This allows does not allow the passage of polar molecules or ions, because it would have to go through hydrophobic center. All right, so this is a more accurate drawing of how they pack. So they form like a 3D, like a ball, if you will, again, and inside would be nucleus and all those things, and then outside would be mostly aqueous based other things. All right, now cholesterol is a part of that cell membrane, and the structure is shown here in this box, and it's always drawn flat, and these type of compounds, cholesterol is one of them, and you see the similar 4 ring fused together in a 6, 6, 6, and then a 5 ring, and then these are given A, B, C, D notation for these fused rings. And anything, any compound that has this A, B, C, D fused ring belong to a class of compounds called steroids. And cholesterol is one of them. But if you look at these natural hormones, a lot of the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, are, you know, the compounds that belong under are under steroids. And so those are the natural hormones, and then underneath it you see the structure synthetic hormones. These are the structures of, you know, pill and things like, or an abortion drug and things like that, that try to mimic what the natural hormones do, right? So these are steroids are messengers, and that carry out functions. Cholesterol, though, even though it belongs under steroids, is one of the important part of lipid bilayer. So these are embedded in membrane, as you saw before in the picture. And another reason why cholesterol is important is because this is how our body produces or makes sex hormones and vitamin D like compounds. And so you could think of cholesterol as like a starting material for steroids in our body. If you look at the structure carefully, notice that much of it is hydrophobic, is all carbons and hydrogens. So this whole region will be hydrophobic. The only hydrophilic part is the one with the polar hydroxy group. And if you actually look at the cholesterol embedded in the lipid bilayer, you'll notice that the cholesterol, this is a schematic, I mean this is just a drawing, but you have to imagine that the hydrophobic part is in the lipid bilayer, and the portion, the ring that has OH on it, is the ring that is sort of in the hydrophilic part. And that should make sense to you how the cholesterol would align itself inside the lipid bilayer, so that it also obeys the desires like rule. The hydrophobic part will be in the lipid bilayer, and the OH polar group will be in the polar region. Okay, and this I just stuck it in here because that's the only place it fits. But this is an example of a wax that we talked about. So this is a mono ester, not a triester, and this is what you find in candles and even wax on that coats like fruits and leaves. It's a way for plants to protect itself from bugs and water by repelling it. And that's why water kind of beads on the leaves if you look carefully, because it's got a coating of this wax. And so that's the phenomena of water beading on these. The last part is about the vitamins, and the sheet that you have, I have two different types of vitamins. And as you know, vitamins are the compounds that are essential for proper functioning of human body, and we can't make these, so we have to obtain these by diet, and depending on the type of vitamin, we need from microgram to milligram quantities. But vitamins are basically divided into two different types. they're either water soluble or fat soluble. So if you take a look at these structures, which ones do you think are going to be water soluble? And notice, so in order to answer that question, you should remember the rule of thumb, which is the solubility in water is for every polar group. If you have like a 5 carbons or less, they're going to tend to be water soluble, but anything exceeding that is going to be fat soluble. So notice all these polar functional groups in vitamin C, for example, ascorbic acid, or vitamin B6. There are a lot of polar functional groups compared to the number of carbons. So these are going to be the water soluble vitamins. And you know that you need, for example, vitamin C to prevent scurvy. And all these vitamins that are water soluble, you have to take care to keep replenishing it, because it sort of goes through your system, and excess will be coming out in urine. So these must be replenished. And because they're water soluble, not likely to reach toxic levels, right? And that should make sense to you. And this is why it's important that you distinguish between the water soluble vitamins versus the fat soluble vitamins, which is below that. And if you look at this structures carefully, notice all the carbons and hydrogens that are present, and not that many polar functional groups. All right, so without even me telling you whether one is water soluble or fat soluble, at this point, given a structure, you should be able to tell me whether something is fat soluble or water soluble. All right, so vitamin A, as you know, you need it for vision. And we talked about the chemistry of vision. Vitamin D is needed to regulate the calcium. It's important for bone development, and deficiency in vitamin D causes rickets. Vitamin E, you saw before in radical chemistry. This is antioxidant, and it traps peroxy radicals in our body. And then vitamin K is necessary for clotting the blood. All right. So the difference in function for these fat soluble vitamins is because they're fat soluble, they're usually stored in fat tissues. And you have to be very careful that you do not overdose on these, because they're harder to get rid of, and so it's likely to reach toxic levels. And that's why in the back of the vitamin bottles, there's a daily allowance amount that is written, and you should not exceed those. Otherwise, you'll be building these up in your fat tissue, and that will be reaching a toxic level. All right. So that concludes the lecture on lipids, and we'll move on to proteins next.